Newly released Health Canada emails show that the agency sought guidance from Pfizer on impurities discovered in the novel mRNA shots and scrambled to unify messaging across regulatory agencies when the public became aware of this contamination. As news swirled about DNA contaminants and the undisclosed presence of a plasmid DNA called the SV40 promoter in Pfizer's novel mRNA COVID-19 injections, Health Canada sought clarification from Pfizer on the products that they are responsible for regulating. These emails were obtained through access to information requests to determine how and when Canada's drug regulator became aware of these undisclosed contaminants, which included large amounts of residual DNA. Despite this, Health Canada repeatedly assures Canadians that these shots are safe and effective.
The vaccines are working in a remarkable way. They have been very effective. And so I had never dreamt, as I said 1 year ago, that we'll be in a position where safe and effective vaccines are available to everyone. I also think that one of the most important ways you can contribute is that you can be vaccine champions.
My repeated queries to Health Canada to determine the risk-benefit analysis used to justify that claim remain unanswered. And the access to information request that I filed in May of 2021 requesting the calculation remains outstanding 3 years later. In an email sent July 23, 2023 from Michael Wall, biologist and evaluator at Health Canada, he asks for clarification from Pfizer on sequence analysis of plasmids and the presence and purpose of the SV40 promoter, including a bunch of redacted sentences. He also seeks clarification on the size analysis performed on the residual DNA contaminants. By the beginning of August, it was determined that this contamination was still present in the XBB 1.5 booster injection that Pfizer was about to seek authorization on. By the end of August, Dean Smith, immunologist and senior scientific evaluator of vaccines at Health Canada, wrote a follow-up to an ad hoc cluster meeting arranged between himself, the EMA, that's the European Medicines Agency, and the US FDA. Smith wants to add the SV40 topic to their discussion as an FYI as to what they plan to do, asking if they, the regulators, are all on the same page. This is a public topic now, and we are approaching the next vaccination season for these vaccines, he's quoted as saying, which at least hints at the fact that the agency is concerned and, of course, does not want to compromise that safe and effective narrative as the boosters roll out. Someone from the EMA responds saying that they would be fine to discuss this, but wants to consider that the FDA dropped a number of other very relevant topics from the agenda. Someone from the FDA also thanks Dean Smith for facilitating a global discussion among NRAs, that's the National Regulatory Authorities. It's probably important to point out here that NRAs are the gatekeepers of medical products. They have a mandate to ensure the quality, safety, and efficacy of medicines, vaccines, blood and blood products, and medical devices. If they are discussing safety and efficacy concerns, then one would think that they should be obligated to inform the public who not only funds their salaries, but also that same public that they are meant to keep safe. Dean Smith brought this conversation forward on August 23rd. He says that he understands there have been internal discussions regarding the presence of an SV40 enhancer/promoter sequence, noting that its presence is unrelated to the purpose of the Pfizer's plasmid as a transcription template for their mRNA COVID-19 vaccine. Pfizer has communicated to Health Canada recently that they apparently chose not to mention this information to the EMA, the FDA, or Health Canada at the time of their initial or subsequent submissions. However, as of April this year, information was independently made public, which has resulted to questions coming to the agencies. Indeed, that was my interview in April with genomics expert Kevin McKernan, who is sounding the alarm on this undisclosed plasmid. The email continues, at Health Canada, we do not view this as an urgent risk topic. However, given the fall COVID-19 vaccination campaigns, it may be useful to be on the same page on this topic between agencies. Time permitting, a brief exchange at the end of tomorrow's cluster meeting could also help inform potential exchanges between agencies and Pfizer on the SV40 topic. as well as future actions we may collectively consider taking subsequently to encourage Pfizer to remedy the situation prior to a potential fall 2024 COVID-19 vaccine campaign. It would be unfortunate if the information circulating had a negative impact on public acceptance of the vaccine this year or in the future. What would be even more unfortunate is if the health fallout from these novel injections were catastrophic, when harms could have been prevented by these various health regulators doing their jobs. They attach a preprint from McKernan's paper sequencing bivalent Moderna and Pfizer mRNA vaccines. Indeed, the meeting, titled Vaccine Cluster, took place on August 24th between the FDA, Health Canada, and the EMA. All of the titles of those in attendance are outlined, but their names are redacted, except for Health Canada co-chair Co-Fam, the executive director. After the meeting, Dean Smith relayed that Pfizer replied and acknowledged minimal risk, but we're not allowed to know the rest because it's redacted. When it came to the SV40 sequence, apparently Pfizer didn't commit. The three agencies did not want to tell Pfizer about their cluster meeting because the pharma oligarch does not seem to care. But why would Pfizer care? The manufacturer liability was waived for these novel products so that they could be rushed into the market and into the arms of Canadians, including babies and children. And Pfizer has been paid billions with an approximate 185 million doses delivered to Canada by the end of this year, even receiving a premium of taxpayer dollars for their mRNA products. Pfizer got rich and is not liable for the fallout, so why would they be concerned and why would they care? According to these emails, Health Canada says they will continue to work with international partners to remove the sequence elements from the plasmid for future strain changes. On September the 5th, 2023, Dr. Tong Wu submitted Pfizer's Quality Evaluation Executive Summary seeking authorization for the XBB 1.5 booster formulation to Dr. Co-Fam. The summary specifies that Pfizer has requested approval by mid-September 2023, and they must commit to providing additional data characterizing the size distribution of residual DNA fragments and residual intact circular plasmid by December 1st, 2023, as well as provide a certified product information document when it becomes available. Health Canada issued a comment that is for information purposes only, and a formal response is not required at this time to remind Pfizer of their obligation to report. The following comments are for information, and a formal response is not required at this time. The sponsor is reminded of the obligation to report OOS, that's out of specification results, for ongoing stability monitoring of Comirnaty vaccines. Yet, in that same package, on the very next page, it notes that stability data for this injection aren't available. Due to the expedited development of the Omicron XBB 1.5 vaccine, as these novel bivalent booster injections were being authorized, an email from Tong Wu to Co-Fam said that these commitments and comments are not considered critical to product quality. Please review the QEES, that's Quality Evaluation Executive Summary, and let me know if you have questions/comments. There is no T&Cs, that's terms and conditions, for this NDS-CV, that's new drug submission for COVID, as the commitments/comments are not considered critical to product quality. I guess product quality isn't of high assurance when the background itself says that the Omicron XBB 1.5 was developed to prevent COVID-19 caused by infection with the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And yet, real-world data all along has showed that these injections are ineffective at doing just that. In spite of all of this, Health Canada rubber-stamped the XBB booster on September 28, 2023, less than a month after Pfizer submitted their request for authorization.
Why is there much more redactions, as my colleague said, in these documents than in other documents? It's because these documents were signed at the beginning of a pandemic, when everybody was desperate for vaccines, when companies were being told to rush vaccine production, do testing in an unprecedented way, in a way they normally don't do it. So these companies were exposed to way higher liability, putting their products on the market than they normally would, because they didn't do the type of testing that normally takes these drugs years to come to market. They did it all in less than a year. So that's why these companies said, if I'm going to deliver you this product that I haven't tested in my normal way, I want to have different conditions.
There was a summary of key quality issues, but it's redacted, so you're not allowed to know what the issues are. Those responsible for the review were Elizabeth Davis as the first reviewer and Michael Wall as the second. The reviewers required a submission review, which had the quality review report, but they did not require a DMF, a drug master file review, consistency testing, an OSC, an on-site evaluation, or anything else. So by October, the EMA was going to discuss the SV40 and DNA contamination issues being disclosed and discussed by third parties with Pfizer, and they asked for Health Canada and the FDA's perspective or if they took any action. They'd apparently been contacted by different media and fact checker groups from the US, so they're seeking an aligned position to navigate the communication challenge. In response to Health Canada asking for residual DNA and plasmid clarification, Pfizer attempts to gaslight the health agency. They claim that the data are not readily available and require time to generate, asking Health Canada to note that to date they have not been requested to provide these characterization data across global markets. All along, the regulator asserts that there is minimal safety risk and that these elements are non-functional, yet they list no references for these assertions. Some notes were taken from what appears to be a discussion with Supriya Sharma, the chief medical advisor to the deputy minister and senior medical advisor at Health Canada, where it was stated that it was unexpected to find the SV40 promoter sequence in the injections because Pfizer didn't disclose it. By the end of October last year, the agency was scrambling to have internal meetings about this, and then especially when Conservative MP Ted Falk filed an order paper question in the House of Commons asking about Health Canada's authorization of the Pfizer injections and the disclosure of contaminants. Now stay tuned for a follow-up report where I break down even more of these emails with genomics expert Kevin McKernan, who is responsible for the independent scientific investigation that discovered these previously undisclosed plasmids in the first place. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. If you'd like to learn more about these novel injections, you can visit our special website at nomoreshots.ca. There you can also send an email to Federal Minister of Health, Mark Holland, calling on him to revoke market authorization for these injections. All of that and more, and to support this work, head on over to nomoreshots.ca.